Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Swarna Mans Biology. In this video, I will be explaining you about the structure of the heart. So let us start. From our lower classes, we have an idea that heart is a pumping machine and it pumps the blood to the different parts, that is cells and tissues present in our body. We also have an idea that it takes the deoxygenated blood from the different parts and supplies the oxygenated blood to the different parts. Now, let us study the structure of this pumping organ which is made by God. So when we see the circulatory pathways, there are two types of the circulation. So one is open circulation and one is closed circulation. So when the heart is pumping the blood to the larger blood vessels, that is into the spaces or the body cavities, which we call them as sinuses, then such type of the circulation is called as open circulation. It is seen in the phylum like Arthropoda and Mollusca. Means here the blood is pumped into the cavities, which we are calling them as sinuses. So when we see the closed circulation, here the blood is pumped into the blood vessels. Means blood from the heart is carried through the blood vessels and through the capillaries and supplied to the cells and the tissues present in our body. It is seen from the phylum Annelida and chordates. Here the blood is pumped through the blood vessels. Okay, then we call it as closed circulation. So now when we see the human circulatory system, here we will be studying about mainly the heart and we will be studying about the blood vessels and even the blood. Already we have discussed about the blood, that is different components of the blood. So we will be studying about the heart as well as blood vessels now. The same thing, we know that blood vascular system, that is the circulatory system of the human consists of heart, blood vessels and the blood. So now we will be discussing first about our heart, that is human heart. Yes, when we see our heart, the heart is mesodermal in origin. So during the formation of the fetus, some of the organs are formed from ectoderm, some are formed from endoderm and some are mesodermal in origin. Our heart is mesodermal in origin. And where it is situated? It is situated in the thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity means upper side, means above the ribs. So this side, which we call it as thoracic cavity. And where it is situated, you can see it is situated in between the lungs and slightly tilted towards the left. When we see the structure of the heart, or when we see the heart where it is situated in between the lungs. It is situated in the thoracic cavity and slightly tilted towards the left. Means when we see the size, it is in the size of the, when we fold our fist, how much size it is? It is a size of the fist. When we see the heart, it is covered by a double-walled membranous bag, which we call it as pericardium. So, the heart is covered by a layer, which we are calling it as pericardium. So, heart is situated in between the lungs. It is present in the thoracic cavity. It is in the size of the fist and it is mesodermal in origin and it is covered by a layer which is called as pericardium. Now, when we see this pericardium, it contains again 3 layers. When we see the pericardium, it contains, if suppose this is the heart, okay, so pericardium is surrounding the heart and this pericardium contains 3 layers, okay. So this is pericardium, okay. So this pericardium, outer pericardium, we call it as parietal layer and the inner layer, we call it as visceral layer. And in between these two, we call it as pericardial space and which is filled with a fluid which is called as pericardial fluid. So, this pericardial space is filled with a fluid which is called as pericardial fluid. So, what we can say, Our heart is protected by a membranous bag, which we are calling it as pericardium, which contains the outer parietal layer, inner visceral layer, okay, inner visceral layer. In between those two, there is present pericardial space, which is filled with pericardial fluid. This pericardial fluid protects our heart from the shocks, means it is protecting our heart. Yes, we know that all the hearts look the same. And okay, so now let us see the structure. So we have seen the layers of the heart. Yes, there are. So the heart is covered by a means it is covered by a membranous bag, which we are calling it as pericardium. And this pericardium contains outer parietal layer and the inner visceral layer. In between those two, there is present pericardial space, which is filled with pericardial fluid. So when we see the structure of the heart, so first we can say we are studying about external structure of the heart. When we are studying its external structure, how it is seen from outside. So heart is protected from, I will draw with another color. From outside, we know that it is protected by a membranous bag, okay? So, which we are calling it as pericardium. And this pericardium contains outer parietal layer and inner visceral layer, okay? Inner visceral layer and outer parietal layer. In between those two, there is present pericardial space, which is filled with pericardial fluid. Yes, our heart is protected like that. So, the outer covering of the heart, which we call it as epicardium. It is called as epicardium. So all the names related to the heart, we call it as cardium. Okay. So it is epicardium. And below the epicardium, there will be a layer of muscle layer, which we call it as myocardium. And the innermost layer of the heart, we call it as endocardium. So what we can say, the layer of the heart is covered by a layer which is called as epicardium, the wall of the heart. The outer layer, we are calling it as epicardium, and the middle myocardium, which is made up of muscular layer, and the innermost layer, we are calling it as endocardium. When we see the endocardium, it is not soft. So it is in the upper part, we can see the ridges, and the ridges increase in the lower part, okay, like this. They are increasing, which we call them as columnae carinae. Means these ridges increase more. We can see more number of ridges here. Means it is not soft. It is like this. So we call them as columnae carinae. Okay. So now let us go into our heart, how it is present. How it is present. So when we see the structure, the heart contains 4 chambers. Means our human heart is 4-chambered, and the upper 2 chambers, we call them as auricles. The upper 2 chamber, we are calling them as auricles. Lower 2 chambers, we call them as ventricles. So, the upper 2 chambers, we are calling them as auricles. The other name of auricles is atrium. Okay. So, the upper 2 chambers are called as auricles or atria, and the lower 2 chambers, we call them as ventricles. So, when we see how it is divided, the upper chambers are lesser in size when compared to that of the lower chambers. Means auricles are smaller when compared to that of ventricles. And when we see the wall of the auricle, it is thinner when compared to that of ventricle. When we see the wall of the ventricle, you can see more amount of the muscular layer here. Yes, in the ventricle, but it is not in the case of auricle. Why? Because when the blood is pumped from the auricles, it is just pumped into the ventricles. But when the blood is pumped from the ventricle, it has to pump to all the parts of our body. Means it must have that much strength. So the wall of the ventricle is thicker when compared to that of auricle. Okay. So this is, the heart is four chambered, and this is our right auricle, and this is our right ventricle, and this is our left auricle, and this is our left ventricle. Okay. So how I am writing this means, when I take my heart and keep on the board, that is, or if I turn back side and if I am facing you, so my right side is right auricle. Understood? I am taking my heart and placing on the board and I am explaining you. So this is my right auricle and this is right ventricle. Okay. This is left auricle and this is left ventricle. Means I am explaining my heart there. Okay. So this is the right auricle, right ventricle, left auricle and left ventricle. And it is covered by a layer which is called as epicardium. Okay. And in the middle there is myocardium. And the innermost layer we call it as endocardium. And we have seen small ridges on the auricle and the ridges increase down, which we are calling them as columnae carinae. Okay. And now let us go deep into the structure of the heart. So now I will draw and explain you so that you also can draw easily. So when we draw the heart, up to now we have learned. Okay. So we know that auricles are smaller when compared to that of ventricles. Okay. So first we are drawing pericardium also, which covers the heart. Okay. Neatly I will draw. So I am covering with pericardium. Okay. So this is our pericardium. And this is epicardium. And this is myocardium, which contains muscles. And this is endocardium, innermost layer of the heart, wall of the heart. And we know this is our right auricle, and this is right ventricle, and this is left auricle, and this is left ventricle. And we are seeing that the heart is divided into, you join like this, okay? The heart is divided like this, okay? These are called as septa, okay? The heart is divided like this, which we are calling them as septa. Into chambers, the heart is divided into 4 chambers with the help of septa. So this septa, which is dividing the 2 auricles, we call it as, it is present in between the auricles. So we are calling it as interauricular septum. This septum, which is dividing the 2 ventricles, it is interventricular septum. And this septum, which divides auricle and ventricle, it is auriculoventricular septum. Means it is present in between auricle and ventricle. So it is auriculoventricular septum. Okay. So it is dividing the heart like this. When we see here, there will be a small hole in between the right auricle and the left auricle in the fetal stages. Later, it will be replaced by a small flap-like structure. Okay. So that hole, we call it as foramen ovale. Later, before the birth, that hole has to be, means it will be filled, it will be covered, and it will be represented by a flap-like structure which is called as fossa ovalis. means remnant, which is represented as a remnant, means the hole will not be seen after the birth. But sometimes the hole may be seen, so it is a birth defect. But during the fetal stages, during the formation of the heart, there will be hole, which we call it as foramen ovale. Later, it will be replaced by fossa ovalis, which is a remnant of that, means the hole will be closed, which we call it as fossa ovalis. So we have seen here the right auricle, left auricle, right ventricle, left ventricle, and septa, different septa, which is dividing the heart into four chambers and fossa ovalis. And then we have seen the coverings of the heart. So now we will go into its internal structure. So when we are seeing the internal structure of the heart, so first we have to see the vessels, that is blood vessels. So when we see the blood vessels, there are two types of the blood vessels, mainly arteries and veins. Okay, means we have seen the septa, everything. So I have rubbed everything. Now I am telling you about the internal structure. In the internal structure, first we have to discuss about vessels. So in the vessels, means blood vessels, there are two blood vessels, that is arteries as well as veins. So coming to the arteries. So arteries, these are the blood vessels which carry oxygenated blood. They carry the oxygenated blood to all the parts of our body. Means it supplies the pure blood from the heart to the different parts of our body. So when compared to, when we see the veins, these are the blood vessels which carry the deoxygenated blood, which carry the deoxygenated blood from the different parts to the heart. So veins always carry the deoxygenated blood from the different parts to the heart. But there is an exception. There is an artery which is called as pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery which carries the deoxygenated blood from the heart, and it carries to the lungs. Pulmonary means it is carrying to the lungs. So this is the artery, the only artery which carries the deoxygenated blood, and it carries to the lungs. And there is a vein. Veins always carry the deoxygenated blood, and there is a vein which is an exception, which are pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins which carry the oxygenated blood. Always veins carry deoxygenated blood, but here the pulmonary vein carry oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. So these two are exception, that is pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. So pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs for purification, and that purified blood from the lungs will be carried to the heart again by the pulmonary veins. So now let us again see here about the internal structure. We have drawn our heart first only, and we know that arteries and veins are present. Yes. So now we will represent these arteries and veins on our heart. Okay. So first I will draw the veins. I will represent with blue color because they carry deoxygenated blood. So there is a vein which carry the deoxygenated blood from the upper parts of our body to the heart, which we call it as superior vena cava. Okay, it carries the deoxygenated blood from the upper parts of our body to our heart and drop inside the right auricle. We know this is a right auricle. Yes, this is the right auricle. This is the right ventricle. This is the left auricle, and this is the left ventricle. Okay, so now there is another vein which carries the deoxygenated blood from our lower parts of our body and drop inside the right auricle, which is called as inferior vena cava. It is inferior vena cava. So this is superior vena cava and this is inferior vena cava. Okay, so it is carrying the deoxygenated blood from the lower parts of our body and dropping inside the right auricle. And there is a coronary sinus which is present which carries the deoxygenated blood from the surrounding tissues of the heart and drop inside the right auricle. Okay, so now our right auricle is fully filled with deoxygenated blood. Understood up to here? There is superior vena cava carrying the deoxygenated blood from the upper part of our body to the right auricle, and inferior vena cava which is carrying the deoxygenated fluid from the lower parts of our body and dropping inside the right auricle, and this is coronary sinus, which carries the deoxygenated blood from the surrounding parts of our tissues and drop inside the right auricle. Okay, and from the right ventricle arises what is called as pulmonary artery. Even our pulmonary artery also is carrying the deoxygenated blood. Yes, it is also carrying the deoxygenated blood. But where it is carrying the deoxygenated blood? To the lungs. This is pulmonary artery. It is also carrying the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle and is dropping inside the lungs. And when coming to the another artery, which is aorta. It runs from the left ventricle and it runs backwards. Okay, so I am drawing like this with dots. It is the biggest artery which supplies the oxygenated blood from the different parts of our means which carries the oxygenated blood from the heart to the different parts of our body. Okay, this is aorta. Aorta, which carries the oxygenated blood from the heart, that is which arises from the right ventricle, and it is carrying the oxygenated blood to the different parts of our body. Okay, and there are pulmonary veins which are present. There are 4 pulmonary veins. Okay, which carries the oxygenated blood and is dropping inside the left auricle. Okay, so here if you see what vessels are carrying the deoxygenated blood, I am representing with blue color, and which are carrying the oxygenated blood, I am drawing with red color. Again I will repeat. So the blood vessels, when we see, there are arteries and veins. Yes, first we are seeing about veins. First, there is superior vena cava which carries the deoxygenated blood from the upper parts of our body and drop inside the right auricle. And inferior vena cava is carrying the deoxygenated blood from the lower parts of our body and dropping inside the right auricle. And from the right ventricle is arising the pulmonary artery which supplies the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. And pulmonary veins carry, these are the pulmonary veins. Okay, the pulmonary veins are carrying the pulmonary veins. They are the pulmonary veins. They are carrying oxygenated blood from the lungs and is dropping inside the left auricle. And from the left ventricle, from the left ventricle is arising aorta, which supplies the oxygenated blood, that is a pure blood from the heart to the different parts of our body. So these are different blood vessels, that is arteries and veins, which are arising from the heart and supplying the blood to the different parts, and they are veins which carries the blood from the different parts and dropping inside the heart. Okay. So we are clear with vessels, that is arteries as well as veins. And we know what are septa. We have studied the different septa which are dividing the heart into 4 chambers. And now when we are studying about the wall of the heart, we have seen some ridges, yes, which I call them as columnae carinae. Yes, do you remember? So the innermost layer, these are called as ridges, and here we are calling them as, in the ventricle we are calling them as columnae carinae. They are called as columnae carinae. Okay. Columnae carinae. And these ridges are occupied by the muscle which we call them as papillary muscles. They are called as papillary muscles. And these papillary muscles will again be connected to the, here also there will be papillary muscles. Okay. They are again connected to the valves. I will explain what are these valves. They are connected to the valves. They are called as chordae tendineae. They are called as chordae tendineae. Okay. So when we see the walls here, now we are coming the walls. What are walls? These are like lids, means which close to prevent the backflow of the blood. Normally, these walls close to prevent the backflow of the blood. So there are walls at each stage. Here, when we see in between the auricles and ventricle, there is auriculo ventricular septum. This auriculoventricular septum contains a wall here which is present in the right side in the auriculoventricular septum. We call it as tricuspid wall. Okay. So the wall which is present in the auriculoventricular septum in between the left auricle and the left ventricle, we call it as bicuspid wall. It is called as bicuspid wall and it is also called as mitral wall. Okay. So now, near the, here we know there is coronary sinus also, yes, which carries the impure blood from the tissues surrounding the heart. So near the coronary sinus, there is a valve which is present, Sebacean valve. Sebacean valve. Okay. So where the inferior vena cava is opening into the right auricle, there is a valve again which is called as Eustachian valve. Okay. So we know this is pulmonary artery. Yes. Near the pulmonary artery, there is present semilunar valve. And even near the aorta, where the aorta is carrying the blood into the left auricle also, there is present semilunar valve. So, Sebacean valve is present near the coronary sinus. Eustachian valve is present guarding where the superior, there is inferior vena cava. So, this is inferior vena cava, yes? Inferior vena cava is opening into the right auricle and semilunar valves are present near the pulmonary artery as well as aorta, and bicuspid valve is present near the auriculoventricular septum in between the left auricle and the left ventricle, whereas this is tricuspid valve is present near the auriculoventricular septum in between the right auricle and right ventricle. So these are all the valves which are present. We know that these valves are nothing but the lid-like structures which prevent the backflow of the blood. Now, so this is the coronary sinus. Here, Sebacean valve is present, and these two, that is Sebacean valve and the Eustachian valve, are remnant in adults. Means after birth, they will not be present. They are present only in fetal stages. So this is about the different valves which are present. So again, so valves carry the blood only in one direction. It prevents the backflow. Okay. So why it has to prevent backflow means, for example, if it is semilunar valve, what it is doing? It is allowing the blood to flow only into the lungs. For example, if it is that is these valves which are present, that is tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve. So when the auricles are contracting, so this you will see later in the working of the heart, then you can clearly appreciate. So they allow the blood only to flow from the auricles into the ventricles. Okay, they will not allow the blood to flow in the backward direction. So that is about bicuspid as well as tricuspid valve. Even the semilunar valves are allowing the blood to flow only into the, that is aorta as well as pulmonary artery. Again, they are not allowing the blood to flow into the auricles like that. Okay, so this function of the valves you will be clearly appreciating or understanding when you see the working of the heart. So we have seen valves allow the blood only to flow in one direction. Tricuspid valve we have seen where it is present near the opening in between the right atrium and the right ventricle, whereas bicuspid valve is present in the auriculoventricular septum, means the opening which is present on the auriculoventricular septum near the left auricle and the left ventricle, and semilunar valves we know it is present near the pulmonary artery as well as aorta. And even we have seen that is eustachian valve as well as Thebesian valve are also present, which are remnant in the adults. Okay, we have already seen about the septum. Okay, let us again see here. So when we see the septum, so this septum means it is nothing but a folding of the heart, little inside. Okay, it is not that some wires are dividing the heart into four. It is just a folding of the layers of the heart inside, which is dividing the heart into four chambers. So this septum, which is present in between the two auricles, we call it as interatrial septum, and this septum, which is present in between the ventricles, we call it as interventricular septum, and the septum, which is present in between the auricles and the ventricle, we call it as atrioventricular septum or auriculoventricular septum. So coming to the nodal tissues. So what are these nodal tissues means? These are the patch of the tissues, that is muscular tissues, which are covering the layers of the heart. Means on the surface of the heart, there will be muscular patches of tissue, which we will be calling them as nodal tissues. So there are two nodal tissues. One is sinoatrial node, that is SAN, and another is atrioventricular node. So coming to the sinoatrial node, this is present in the right upper side of the right atrium, whereas auriculoventricular node or AVN is present in the left corner of the left atrium. So both these are helpful in the starting of the contraction of the heart. Means they are initiating the uh, contraction of the heart. So we call them as pacemakers. In that SAN is called as pacemaker of the heart because it is the nodal tissue which starts the contraction of the heart. And there are also bundle of his or tissue fibers, tissue bundle of his which are present near the lower side of the heart, that is covering the ventricle. Okay. So this is about the nodal tissues. So what this nodal tissue do? They generates the action potential, which is mainly responsible for the starting of the contraction of the heart. So we have seen SAN as well as AVN. SAN generates about the action potential of about 70 to 75 beats per 1 minute. So if we see the normal heartbeat is about 70 to 75 beats per 1 minute. So SAN maintains the rhythmic contraction of the heart. SAN is called pacemaker of the heart. Means the brain is not telling the heart to contract and relax. So it is SAN which generates the starting of the contraction of the heart. So that's it. Again, I will draw the structure of the heart. Why? Because it will be easy for you to learn also. There are so many children who will be learning the entire structure of the heart. They will know all the names of the walls also, that is auricles, ventricles, and even all the walls, but they don't know how to draw. So I will make you learn how to draw easily. So first we will draw the outline of the heart. We are familiar with this shape. Yes. So we know, let us take this as pericardium. We have seen that the heart is covered by a bag or layer which is called as pericardium. So now we'll draw epicardium, which is the outer wall of the heart. Now we will draw the endocardium. Okay. And represent a small foramen ovale here. Write its name. And write even epicardium also. And this is endocardium. Yes. This is endocardium. And there is myocardium. And if we see small ridges are present on the surface of the heart and the atria as well as ventricle. And first you write right auricle, right ventricle, left auricle, and left ventricle. So here they are ridges, and here we are calling them as columnae, carinae. And these ridges here, even this side also. Okay. So here there are present papillary muscles. So if you draw along with me, you can easily learn papillary muscles. And these papillary muscles from this arises what are called as chordae tendineae, which are connected to the septa. Here there will be 3 chordae tendineae, and here only 2. I have drawn 3, I will draw 1. Okay. Okay. These are chordae tendineae. Let us name them also. Now let us draw our arteries and veins. We know this is superior vena cava, and this is our inferior vena cava. And from here we know our pulmonary artery is arising, which carries the blood to the lungs for purification. So write it as pulmonary artery. Now we will draw pulmonary veins. There are 4 pulmonary veins which carry the pure blood. Write them as pulmonary veins. And now we will draw our aorta, which runs from the back side and supplies the blood to all the parts of our body. Which blood? That is pure blood. Okay. This is our aorta. Okay. And there is coronary sinus also. Yes. There is coronary sinus, which carries the impure blood. Name it as coronary sinus. If you remember even these walls, write the names of the walls also. They will give more marks. Okay. Here, this wall we know that it is tricuspid wall. And this wall is called as bicuspid wall. And there are semilunar walls here near the pulmonary artery as well as aorta. And eustachian valve is present here, opening of the inferior vena cava. Write it also. And near the coronary sinus, there is present Sebacean valve. Write that also. Sebacean. That's it. We have named everything almost. Okay. So this is about the structure of the heart. And even if you want still more marks, we know that always the right side will be filled with impure blood. So color it with light blue color, lightly you color. Even the right ventricle. Neatly you color. Okay. And the left side is filled with pure blood. Fill it with red color. Light red you fill. So that's it. This is about the structure of the heart. Okay. And even if you want, you write even pericardial space also, which is filled with pericardial fluid. So this is about the all the arteries, veins, walls, and everything about the structure of the heart. Okay, hope you understood this topic. Here we have studied the structure of the heart and the names of all the valves which are present, and the names of all the arteries and veins which are present in different chambers of the heart. Hope you understood this topic. If you like this topic, please like it, share, and subscribe my channel. In my next video, I will be explaining you about the working of the heart. Okay? Thank you.